Welcome back guys, and I hope you are comfortable. For today we're going to be looking over some JRPGs that are considered to be masterpieces. But you're not going to be hearing any from me. Instead, I reached out to 15 other adventurers in the JRPG sphere, and I gave them approximately 2 minutes to choose one game and just gush about it. And with that, let's get started with our first guest. He's jacked, he's sassy, he's David Vince.
Hello Kiseki Nut, thank you so much for having me. This is David over at the channel davidvinc, and I want to talk about what my most 10/10 JRPG is today. The game that I cannot fault in any way, shape, or form, and that of course is Chrono Trigger. I guess I'm going to be the basic bitch today and say Chrono Trigger, the game on everybody's mind. I still remember whenever I first got this game. It was Christmas of 1995. I was still in 8th grade, and I must have played this all winter break long. I loved it. I had read article after article in the Nintendo Power where it was talking about the Dream Team getting together. People from Square Enix coming together. The creators of Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest coming together to create the one ultimate game. And believe me, it was. This game was fantastic. From the characters who were just completely lovable, and in battle, they would have their dual techs, they would work together. The battles were seamless, they were encountered on screen, and they didn't take place in like a separate field or anything else like that. You would double and triple techs, so whoever you had in your party actually mattered. A lot of times back then, games didn't have a whole lot of side quests, and if they did, they weren't all that important, but Chrono Trigger changed all that. It was very, very linear all the way up through till the end, and then it opened up for you to do everything that you wanted to do, for you to explore each and every time period in your own way, to go and finish up those side quests, which would really help flesh out your characters, as well as give you great equipment and rewards for it. There was nothing bad I can say about this game, from the graphics, to the music, to the characterizations, to the story. Everything just worked, and that is why it is my number 1 10/10 game.
A game that's lauded as one of the greatest RPGs of all time? I think that's a pretty good way to start off the list. And striking while the iron is still hot is our next guest, GamingBroductions.
Hey, how's it going everyone? Corbin here from GamingBroductions. So, I guess we're talking JRPG masterpieces today. There are a handful that come to mind, some of them already being featured in this video. However, to me, there is one that stands out above the rest. That game being the one and only Final Fantasy IX. Final Fantasy IX is not only my favorite Final Fantasy and favorite RPG of all time, but also perhaps my favorite video game ever. I mean, I got the homie Vivi hung up in my room even, like, come on. It just has it all. A timeless story, memorable characters, amazing music, fun gameplay, and yeah, you name it. It was the culmination of nearly 15 years of working on and perfecting the Final Fantasy formula. With 10 and onwards, they began to change things up a bit, so Final Fantasy IX was like their ultimate send-off, harkening back to the series' more medieval roots with plenty of callbacks for longtime fans. It's got like everything that makes a Final Fantasy game, well, Final Fantasy. Chocobos, Moogles, Black Mages, just the whole shebang, you know? In its essence, it's like the purest Final Fantasy. I mean, even series creator Hironobu Sakaguchi went on record to say that it's his favorite Final Fantasy.
I like 9, of course. Final Fantasy IX is the best. Well, you heard it here from the man himself.
So yeah, I'm not saying that it's objectively the best game in the series, but I'm also not saying that it's not. Don't be fooled by the more lighthearted, fairy tale type fantasy look of the game either. The story contains some of the heavier themes in the series. 11-year-old me fell victim to this mistake. Next to 7 with Cloud and his huge badass sword and the attractive teens on 8's cover, I passed up on 9 for the longest time as it just looked kinda silly and lame to me. I thought Zidane looked stupid with his parted hair and goofy outfit, and I was just like, bro, what is this? No, what an idiot I was. Not only did 9 become my favorite game ever, but Zidane also became my favorite Final Fantasy protagonist. So yeah, don't judge a book by its cover, folks. My only gripe with the game is that battles move pretty slow, though thankfully this issue was alleviated in the modern port with the fast forward option. This turns it from a flawed masterpiece to just a masterpiece that has aged extremely well. In my opinion, it's without a doubt one of the pinnacles of the genre. Also, quick bonus game. I heard there's a lot of Square RPGs in this list, so to recommend a non-Square RPG masterpiece, check out Grandia. It's a truly incredible title that deserves some more love. Thanks for having me on, TKN.
Yeah, spoiler warning, there's going to be quite a bit of Final Fantasy in this list, so let's keep that train chugging through Midgar with our next guest, Chicken Fillets.
Hello, Chicken Fillets here, and thank you to TKN for asking me to recommend a masterpiece JRPG. Now, for anyone who knows myself, my favourite JRPG of all time is Final Fantasy VII. However, the game I'm going to talk to you about, which is a masterpiece to me, is actually Final Fantasy VII Remake. So let me tell you why it's a masterpiece. Final Fantasy VII Remake always had a large pair of shoes to fill, following up from the critically acclaimed original. And to me, listen, it did fill those shoes. Now, it may only cover a small part of the original, and I have a slight bias as the Midgar section in the original was my favourite part. The city of Midgar felt finally fleshed out. NPCs that had hee-haw build to them in the original has the spotlight here. I'm looking at you, Jesse. The fantastic hybrid action combat is on another level, and it is an utter blast to play. Do I mind any of these story changes? No. Even when Cloud is like this every time he sees Sephiroth. This is quite simply the game that I imagined playing when I was growing up with the original. And look, if I've not sold you on this so far, there is DLC available where you can play as everyone's favourite shuriken-wielding ninja, Yuffie Kisaragi. And remember, the DLC actually has the best minigame out there, Fort Condor. So would you agree with me that this is a masterpiece, or am I talking
Shit.
Let us know in the comment section down below, and please remember to like, share and subscribe to TKN. This has been Chicken Fillets, and until next time, tatty bye.
What a great pick, and I cannot wait for Rebirth, man. I mean, I need to get a PS5 first, but I'm hopeful that it's going to be coming to PC as well. Also, did you guys know that my man Chicken Fillets edits everything on his phone? Yeah, I was in awe too. Give that man some love, as well as our next guest, Taylor from The Gaming Shelf.
Hey everyone, this is Taylor from The Gaming Shelf, and thanks so much TKN for having me on this collab. Now, if I could only pick one 10 out of 10 masterpiece JRPG to talk about, it would definitely be Final Fantasy Tactics. I just have such a soft spot for this game, and it doesn't nearly get the love it deserves. To me, this game just has it all. It has a great art style, both in-game with the character portraits and in those new cutscenes in the PSP version. It also has a fantastic emotional soundtrack, along with a compelling story and huge roster of compelling characters. Not to mention a lot of secret and cameo guest characters like Cloud and Balthier. But most importantly is that unbelievable gameplay. It's everything from the intricate level design, deep mechanics, and in my opinion, the best iteration of the Final Fantasy job system. No two playthroughs are alike. You can mix and match abilities across a variety of classes for some wild combinations. Some of my favorites are always a monk with armor, they would just have so much armor and never die, or giving Ramza 2 swords so he could attack twice. And whenever I think back on the game, there really are no parts that I hate or don't want to replay. Maybe the Wii Graph fight because it can be challenging, but it's not unfun. And at this point, I definitely know how to beat Wii Graph, so it's not that bad anymore. And let's be real, there are fewer games deserving of a remaster to modern platforms. Yes, it's available on mobile, but that's not where it matters most, which would be on consoles and PC. Now, of course, there has been a rumor of a remaster for a long time because it was on the Nvidia GeForce Now leak, and it wouldn't surprise me if this game got announced and released by the end of the year. And if it does, to everyone watching this video, you absolutely need to give this masterpiece a try.
Will it ever get a remake? Who knows, but that rumour mill was in overdrive for Tactics Ogre, and look what happened with that, so we can dream. And our next guest is a dream content creator for anyone who has a Switch and loves RPGs. It's HallowedBeThyGame.
Hello everyone, Ren from HallowedBeThyGame here, and I am beyond honored to share with you a game of legend that I consider to be a 10 out of 10 masterpiece, Final Fantasy VI. Truly, as the years go on and my life changes, I find that so many aspects of Final Fantasy VI age like a fine wine to me. The massive cast of FF6 manages to find a balance of having a diverse and large cast, yet ensuring to give the main players of it character development and at times a devastating amount of impact. The basic turn-based combat system doesn't necessarily switch up the formula to a great degree, but the iconic and tried and true method is bolstered by a power progression system that I have loved to see continue in some of my favorite JRPGs of all time. In FF6, you have the ability to equip items that will teach you spells as you level characters, while having those items equipped. An addition that is sometimes overlooked, but seeing other colossally impactful JRPGs such as Nocturne adopt a similar system with Magatamas was a joy to experience and offers an extremely varied and enriching experience for subsequent playthroughs. However, the strongest and most powerful aspects of FF6 come from its nigh peerless soundtrack and its devastatingly powerful character stories. As time has marched onward and I am now a husband and a father, I find Edgar and Cyan's storylines to be my favorite segments in any video game ever. The Ghost Train sequence has largely become remembered for Sabin's god-tier swole moments, but it often sadly eclipses a moment that largely renders me to tears with Cyan's moment of trying to catch the train as it speeds away. Also, Edgar's coin flip hits too hard. Truly a timeless classic that is solidified in my top 5 favorite games of all time. Thank you so much, Kiseki Nut, for the chance to share my entry. I wish you all the best, and I'll see you next time.
Thank you for your suggestion, mate, and congratulations on your second child as well. And what a great time to recommend it as well, with the Pixel remasters releasing quite recently too. We move back across to the UK now with a fellow Brit, TheTwitGamer. I'm not being rude, that is actually his name.
Xenoblade Chronicles 2 is one of those games that took me by surprise. There's so much about the game that's so good. The combat, the exploration, the world building. But there's certainly one aspect of the game that elevates all these elements, and that's the soundtrack. And oh boy, does Xenoblade Chronicles 2 have a fantastic soundtrack. Locations ooze with character just through their music alone. Just search for Counterattack or Tomorrow With You from the Xenoblade Chronicles 2 soundtrack and you will not be disappointed. Key moments in the story are elevated to new heights because of this gorgeous soundtrack. And on the subject of the story, where to begin? This is the part of the game that really elevates it for me, it really does. The travels with Rex and Pyra start off with a relatively simple objective, and along your journey your character roster grows, and while I obviously can't say too much about the story without getting into the dreaded spoiler territory, I will say the characters are thoroughly explored, and you definitely feel that these characters had their own lives and goals before teaming up with Rex and Pyra, and you will most definitely be right there alongside them during their highs and lows. But it's worth mentioning one aspect that made me absolutely adore this game and its fantastic story is the expansion, Torna, the Golden Country. On the advice of my community, I was advised to play Torna at a certain key point in the main story, and I am so grateful for their input. Not only does Torna itself have new gameplay mechanics to get your hooks into, but it continues that pattern of great storytelling through its exploration, side content, and its characters. But by the end, the expansion had elevated the main story of Xenoblade Chronicles 2 to new heights that I've rarely felt in any other video game.
I am all on board with that suggestion, mate. Xenoblade Chronicles 2 was a joy to play last year, and now I can see why my mates put in 150 hours to the game. By the way, Xenoblade Chronicles 2 gives us some pretty cool scale figures. I mean, have you seen the Pyra and Mithra one? No? Well, I do know someone who has them, and she's up next. It's Orbalology.
Hi, this is Emily from Orbalology, and the JRPG I think is near flawless is Radiant Historia Perfect Chronology on the 3DS. Now, no game is perfect, but the things I look for when evaluating JRPGs are how well are the characters and story written, how innovative and fun is the combat system, and how complementary are the graphics, the character design, and the music. And I think Radiant Historia Perfect Chronology checks off all of these boxes. How the narrative handles the time traveling aspects is easily the biggest highlight of this game, especially how the consequences played out with the characters' decision making for all the routes. All the character emotions I thought were really well written, and I really enjoyed all the camaraderie and friendships built in this game, which is something I really love in JRPGs. I just loved how strategic the combat system was, especially when they utilized the grid system and push mechanics to generate different combos and attack multiple enemies at once. And it's a combat system I would love to see return some sort of spiritual successor at some point, because it's a combat system that we really haven't seen utilized anywhere else. There were a lot of graphical and musical enhancements in the 3DS remake that I really appreciated. There were admittedly some odd changes made to some of the character portraits, most notably the princess, but I really loved all the designs and just how vibrant and colorful everything was in the world. It just made exploring and discovering new things in all the environments a lot of fun. There are some additional add-ons that were maybe a little bit unnecessary from the original DS game. Despite some of these flaws in the remake, I think Radiant Historia Perfect Chronology is near perfect in my eyes and definitely deserves a spot in this JRPG master list.
Oh man, what an underrated system the DS was, and you can apply that to the 3DS as well. An absolute goldmine of quality RPGs, with Radiant Historia arguably being the best of the lot. What a game. And what a game can also be applied to our next entry from the chipper as ever MissBubbles.
Hello TKN friends, I'm MissBubbles. Thank you so much for having me. I'm a JRPG beginner, so my pick for a flawless JRPG might be a little bit different from what your typical Final Fantasy and all these majestic games are going to be. In my opinion, nothing can top off Ni no Kuni 2: A Revenant Kingdom. It caught my attention because of its extremely cute and colorful graphics, but I had no idea what kind of a journey I was signing up for. Here I was on this adventure while more and more party members joined me, and what I loved the most is the action combat, which was perfect for someone like myself easing into JRPGs after having a not so bubbly experience with Persona 5 before that. We're not gonna talk about it. Switching between characters on the fly and choosing between light and heavy attacks to create the perfect combos was so much fun to play around. What made the combat even more interesting is the diverse amount of higgledies. We're talking about 100 of them that you can collect, and I mean, look at them. They're so cute, and they're going to help you both in battles and while exploring the world. And speaking of the world, the difference between the top view when you're going out and about and exploring and then the third-person view in the towns makes everything a little bit more exciting. In my opinion, Hydropolis was my favorite to visit. I adore the seaside, and being there just felt so peaceful. And let's talk about the freaking soundtrack. Oh my god, it's so good. And in every town, you have a plethora of side quests to take, all while you're on your own epic mission of uniting different kingdoms to rid the world from evil. You also have this kingdom management aspect where you build facilities and assign citizens to work, and this will help you carry technological research, access more weapons, improve your armor, boost your spells, and so much more. There's just so much for you to see in Ni no Kuni 2, and there really isn't enough time to cover everything it has to offer, but I loved every moment of it, and it helped me embrace the JRPG genre. So even now, when I play games like the Atelier series, Final Fantasy, Fire Emblem, to name a few, Ni no Kuni 2 still seems to be the flawless one for me. I hope to see you on my channel, and a special shout out to TKN for making such an awesome collab.
She's known for her cozy recommendations, and man does Ni no Kuni 2 evoke that feeling. However, our next entry isn't so relaxing, but still a banger no less, and it's brought to you by TarksGauntlet.
When it comes to 10 out of 10 games or certified masterpieces, it should be acknowledged up front that words and scores like this don't imply perfection to me. It implies a game stands out above the best of the best despite its flaws. And there's almost no game I think encapsulates this idea better than Tetsuya Takahashi's original Xenogears, published to the PlayStation 1 in 1998 via Squaresoft. Xenogears released in a time when JRPGs were still making the switch from 2D to 3D and exists right at the crossroads, throwing beautiful sprites into early 3D environments, creating an effect that's as charming as it is dated. Combat is one of the earlier uses of a turn-based system with real-time elements, allowing the player to utilize the controller's face buttons to perform combos and unlock newer, stronger ones through controlled repetition. A secondary combat system can be found through the game's use of its mechs, which are upgraded separately from the main characters and offer a whole different form of strategy for the special battles that they're used in. It's similar how Trails of Cold Steel used its mechs only many years earlier. Where the game shines above all others, however, is its story. The story is beyond any ability to explain in such a short amount of time, but it's a sprawling space opera centered on some tragic characters in a very, very cruel world. A world whose violent power struggles are matched only by the struggles within the characters' heads. The story is notorious for its references to and understanding of modern politics, psychology, and religion, among many other things. But it's also notorious for the one big black mark that makes this masterpiece the flawed masterpiece that it is. Unfortunately, Squaresoft did not want to give the team more time or money to develop the story, and pressured them to end it and release it prematurely. However, the team did not agree with leaving the story where it was, and decided it was best to finish the story with the extremely limited budget and time they had left, causing the second disc to function more like a truncated visual novel, allowing only certain events to be playable. It's unfortunate, but it still created something that felt distinctly Xenogears in nature, and I think now it gives any fan warm feelings seeing clips and references to how it was handled. If for nothing else, there has never been another game quite like it, and on all fronts, the art, the music, the story, and the combat, Xenogears remains a king among kings.
I mean, how can you do a masterpiece JRPG list without Xenogears? I mean, that's just wrong. And just like HallowedBeThyGame, congrats on your first child, man. And talking about men, our next guest has a voice and face that makes the fangirls swoon. It's SuperDerek RPG.
The word hidden gem gets thrown around so much that at this point it's well beyond passé, but the fact that the Kiseki nut himself has never heard about this one only solidifies my conviction that the shoe fits in this case. Terranigma is my pick for a true masterpiece JRPG. It answers the question of what if Chrono Trigger and Secret of Mana had a baby, because not only is Terranigma drop-dead gorgeous, but also represents the best action RPG on the Super Nintendo, hands down. And yes, that includes consideration for the Trials of Mana, though it is a pretty close second place. But it's not just fun and pretty, it also has a rather avant-garde and abstract storyline that sets itself up for some real gut-wrenching and heartfelt moments that punctuate the otherwise upbeat and whimsical story told right here on our literal, actual planet Earth. The game follows Ark as he embarks on a journey to restore the Earth after the world ended. First, by raising the land masses from the depths of the oceans, then restoring plants, animals, and eventually humanity itself. If the concept of restoring humanity after the end of the world sounds kind of familiar, like something straight out of Soul Blazer for instance, that's because this game is in fact the third game in the Heaven and Earth series by Quintet, which includes Soul Blazer, Illusion of Gaia, or Illusion of Time for you PAL regions, and Terranigma. Technically, Grand Stream Saga on PS1 might also be included in this list, but it's nowhere near as good as anything else in the series, so most of us just kind of pretend that it doesn't really exist. Terranigma is a masterpiece of this style of action RPG, but the real tragedy is that so few people talk about it because this game came out right as Enix's United States offices closed up shop, leaving the Western localization exclusively to Enix's European branch. And as a result, the game never really came out in the United States, and the English localization suffers somewhat. The few copies that exist in PAL regions have been unobtainium for years, and the developers have vanished off the face of the earth, making a re-release seem increasingly unlikely as the years march on. That's why you've probably never heard of this hidden gem, and why you actually have to emulate the game to experience the pinnacle of action RPG greatness.
Ouch, I got called out. But it's true, until Derek mentioned it, I had never heard of Terranigma, so thanks for that, mate. That's another one that I'm going to be adding to the retro list that is just getting ever bigger. Thankfully, our next entry is a game that I have played, and it is one that I would recommend, but I'm going to let our next guest, Alex from BacklogBattle, do the honours.
What's up, everyone? Alex here, and I'm here to talk about 13 Sentinels Aegis Rim. Now, I talk about this game a lot, but what actually isn't being talked about in many of the reviews out there is the feeling that it gives us the first time you play it, which is this sense of brooding uncertainty. Because while I can talk about its hybrid real-time strategy, gameplay, and how cleverly the game splits the story gameplay with its combat, I feel like the notion that you really don't know what's going on is the biggest draw of the game. Now, I understand that a lot of people may feel uncomfortable about this, especially given how many other JRPGs out there spend countless hours just revealing a lot of what's happening in the world within the first few hours. Which is what makes 13 Sentinels Aegis Rim so special, because it leaves enough breadcrumbs for you to follow, and then completely obliterates it the next time. And the fact that you can choose to engage with its story and combat as much as you want, provided there are limits, that is a feat of game design that is unsurpassed. And I don't see anybody else trying to do the same thing anytime in the near future. 13 Sentinels Aegis Rim is a labor of love from Vanillaware, and mixed with its fantastic story, memorable characters, and of course its mecha, it easily goes into my list as a 10 out of 10 game.
100% agree, mate. Aegis Rim is one of the best sci-fi experiences I have ever had. I mean, we've known each other for quite a while in YouTube terms, Alex, and I don't think we've actually disagreed on anything. Yet. And talking about longtime friends, our next guest is someone who has been around since before this channel hit 200 subscribers. He is a fellow Brit, which is great, but he is also a Liverpool supporter, which is unfortunate. It is Dark Phoenix.
Persona 5 Royal, in my view, is widely considered to be one of the greatest, if not almost flawless JRPGs of all time. With its deep characters, engaging story, and catchy soundtrack and addictive gameplay, it's no wonder I fell in love with this wonderful game. Why I believe Persona 5 Royal is an almost flawless JRPG is down to several reasons. The gameplay, the story, the characters, and the OST. From the very beginning, Persona 5 Royal immerses you in its stylish and unique world. The game's opening sequence sets the tone for what's to come, introducing you to its cast of misfit characters and the twisted world in which they inhabit. Although the game's combat system has your typical turn-based strategy elements, it is relatively easy to learn and showcases a wide variety of enemies to face and abilities to use, and the game's stylish graphics and animations make every battle feel like an epic anime showdown. But Persona 5 Royal isn't just about battling monsters. The game's social simulation elements are just as addictive as you balance school, relationships, and daily life with your alter ego as a phantom thief. You'll also spend hours exploring Tokyo, building friendships, and solving the mysteries of the game's overreaching story. And what is to say about the story? Well, Persona 5 tackles some serious themes, from corruption in the government and society to the struggles of adolescence and mental health. And the game's characters are some of the most memorable and well developed in any JRPG I've played, with each member of the Phantom Thieves bringing their own unique backstory and personality to the game. And if all that wasn't enough, Persona 5 Royal adds even more content and improvement to the already incredible Persona 5 experience. New characters, storylines, and gameplay mechanics make this the definitive version of the game, and one that any JRPG fan should not miss. And finally, the most redeeming feature of Persona 5 Royal that truly makes this game an almost flawless JRPG is its standout OST. Composed by Shoji Meguro, the music perfectly captures the game's stylish, eclectic, and at times surreal atmosphere. The soundtrack features a mix of genres from jazz and rock to pop and hip-hop, with each song enhancing the game's themes and setting. The upbeat and energetic OSTs of La Surprise is the game's most iconic battle theme, perfectly capturing the thrill and excitement of combat. Meanwhile, the haunting and melancholic Beneath the Mask is the game's main theme, reflecting the game's themes and duality and hidden identity. The soundtrack also features vocals from the game's actors, with standout soundtracks such as Rivers in the Desert and my personal favourite Life Will Change, showcasing their impressive vocal talents. And with over 100 tracks in the game, there's always something new and exciting to listen to, and there's always something for everybody. Overall, the soundtrack of Persona 5 Royal is not just a collection of great songs, but a vital part of the game's identity and experience. It's a testament to the incredible talent and creativity of the game's composers and musicians, and a treat for anyone who appreciates great video game music. In short, Persona 5 Royal is an almost flawless game. From its stylish presentation to its addictive gameplay, deep characters, engaging story and very catchy soundtrack. It's a game that will keep you hooked for hours on end, and if you haven't played it yet, now is the time to join the Phantom Thieves and to steal someone's heart.
When you hear those funky beats, you can't help but move your feet. One of the definitive modern JRPGs of our time, and it goes on any list like this. As does our next entry from one of the most lovely people you're ever going to have the pleasure of listening to. It is Britta from Food for Dogs.
Hi, I'm Food for Dogs. For this video today, I would like to go back to my great love of tactics. What better than Fire Emblem? Fire Emblem Echoes, Shadows of Valencia. This game is one of the oldest tactics games, Japan only Fire Emblem Gaiden. Intelligent Systems did a complete remake and it's absolutely brilliant. I love it to pieces. Echoes is quite different from the other modern Fire Emblems on the 3DS. We don't have a weapon triangle. Oops, no, that didn't exist back then in 1992. Positioning and strategy and occupying castles becomes all important. We have two lovely protagonists, Arm and Celica. You take two parties on separate routes, which sometimes converge. And there's romance in the story, but there are no marriages to arrange, no shipping wars to fritter time away with. The original Gaiden incorporated dungeon crawling segments, and they kept those intact as well. Almost every line is wonderfully voice acted, and there is an orchestral score. This is a masterclass in how to do a remake. The most important thing in any Fire Emblem game, the battle maps. They are glorious. I remember one castle and I replayed the map 21 times. All the parts of the game fit together perfectly, and the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. My personal choice of masterpiece. Thank you.
I must confess, yet another game I haven't played, but one that was on my shopping list. And now that Britta has given her blessing to it, that pushes it up to even greater heights. And talking about greater heights is our next guest, who is also a fellow Brit. It is the up-and-coming TheMiyazakiMan.
What's up everyone, it's your boy TheMiyazakiMan Sai here, when my mate the Kiseki Nut asked me to provide an RPG that I consider flawless, a masterpiece, pure perfection. Only one game came to mind, Genzo Suikoden 2 on original PlayStation 1. From the memorable characters, larger than life 108 stars of destiny, all with a different purpose, different backgrounds united together under the Tenkai Star of Destiny. You build your castle, you recruit characters over time, they help your castle grow, and Leknak the Seer says if you collect all of the stars, good things will happen, hidden ending. This will be spoilers free since the HD remake is coming out this year, but the most badass evil villain of all time exists in this game. He slaughters by the thousands. It will take hundreds and hundreds to even stand a chance. Look at that graphic. This character right here, conflicted, twisted, opposite sides of the war. This isn't like Final Fantasy where you're against an unknown monster, larger than life alien being. It's man versus man protecting your hometown on the battlefield, in war, many different battle modes, including the timeless, tried and tested method 6-party member here, fighting bosses, random encounters, you can even recruit squirrels on the battlefield. This game has it all. The scenery, the background, the world building, the character building, the backstory, absolutely everything is 10 out of 10 and top notch. And let's get onto the music. Oh my goodness, the music. This is a 4 CD OST. Name me any other RPG that has bangers, CD upon CD, and 4 of them. Miki Higashino did an outstanding job, and she is forever remembered for creating one of the most beautiful soundtracks ever, the theme of A Moonlit Night, representing the hopes and dreams of all the Suikoden fans in the world. Make sure you play this masterpiece when the HD remake is released.
Mate, I cannot wait to get my hands on those remasters. I just hope that Konami don't do anything to tarnish their legacy, or they're getting a one-way ticket to the Shadow Realm. Yu-Gi-Oh reference. Also, can I give a shout out to my man's collection? That is a killer haul he's got there. And our last guest today is cut from the same cloth. She's got a killer collection, she loves RPGs, and she has even helped me out in the past as well. It is the brilliant yet ever humble Isha from Isha Gaming.
Thank you so much for inviting me, chickenfillets. I am a fan of your channel, and you asked me, what is a flawless JRPG game? From what I understand, I could pick any era and any system, but I'm picking a modern system and a new game, actually. Because this JRPG, I feel like it had everything that I am personally looking for in a JRPG. It had the story, it had the characters, it had the feeling of adventure that you want to actually continue the game and see how the story goes. It had that incentive drive to play it more. It had the combat. Definitely, I'm talking about Atelier Ryza 2. Actually 2, yeah. Atelier Ryza 3 is now out, but I chose Atelier Ryza 2. I just love the game. I 100%ed the game, I did everything in the game, and I loved every second of it. I played it on my Nintendo Switch, but it is also out on PlayStation and PC. And you know what, while I am actually mentioning Atelier Ryza 2, I am also gonna somewhat mention Atelier Ryza 1, because it is just so solid, and I have actually recently gone back to Atelier Ryza 1 again. It's the type of game that I return to several times. I've been finding myself returning to that several times, even though that game came out in 2019. What I'm saying is that if these games and this gameplay looks interesting to anyone watching this video, I would like you to give it a chance. Because the Atelier series, the Atelier games, are so good. They give you all of the satisfaction that you're looking for in a JRPG, is what I want to say. And Ryza's, actually any of the three, is good to start with. Preferably maybe 1 or 2, I don't know. I would maybe personally actually pick Atelier Ryza 2 as a starting point. I mean, why not? Because there were so many improvements in Ryza 2 compared to Ryza 1, even though that was also good. I can go on and on forever about these games. And if you want to know more about the series, I have a bunch of review videos over on my channel, Isha Gaming. And thank you so much, chickenfillets, for inviting me. I will be sure to invite you sometime too.
Listen to her, guys, and I say that from experience, for Isha was one of the 2 creators who eventually got me into the Atelier series, and ever since then, I have been smitten with it. And there it is, guys, the curtain closes on our Masterpiece JRPGs list. Thank you to everyone who took time out of their day in order to take part in this. All of their channels are in the description and the pinned comments if you want to check them out. And also, thank you to you guys for watching, I hope you had a good time, and I'll see you next week. Peace. Thank you for watching this video. If you liked it, please like and subscribe for more JRPG content, and consider joining my Patreon if you're interested. Peace.